How sharks appeared. A journey through 450 million years of evolution. Few creatures on Earth inspire as much awe, fear, and fascination as the shark. With their sleek bodies, razor-sharp teeth, and silent efficiency, they seem almost too perfect, engineered by some invisible hand for a single relentless purpose. And in a sense, they were. Not by a hand, but by time itself. Hundreds of millions of years of it. To understand how sharks appeared, we must travel back to an ocean so ancient it would be unrecognizable to us today. An ocean that existed long before dinosaurs, long before forests, long before anything walked on land. The ancient ocean. Around 450 million years ago, during a period geologists call the Ordovician, the seas of Earth were alive with strange and alien creatures. Trilobites crawled across the seafloor. Nautiloids drifted through the water column. Strange armored fish called placoderms were just beginning their rise to dominance. These were the early days of vertebrate life in the oceans, and somewhere in those waters, a lineage was quietly taking shape that would outlast nearly everything around it. The first evidence of shark-like creatures comes not from complete fossils, but from tiny, scattered scales, microscopic structures called denticles, or dermal denticles, found embedded in ancient rock. These tooth-like scales are so characteristic of sharks that paleontologists can recognize them even without a single bone to accompany them. Because here lies one of the great paradoxes of shark paleontology. Sharks have no bones. Their skeletons are made entirely of cartilage, a softer tissue that rarely fossilizes. So for much of their early history, sharks leave behind only fragments, scales here, a tooth there, the ghostly outline of a fin preserved in sediment. The first sharks. By the Devonian period, around 419 to 359 million years ago, a time often called the Age of Fishes, sharks had clearly established themselves as a distinct group. One of the earliest creatures we can confidently call a shark was Cladoselache, a sleek, fast swimmer that reached about 1.8 meters in length. It had a streamlined body, multiple rows of small, multi-cusped teeth, and large eyes, suggesting it was an active predator that hunted by sight. Remarkably, some Cladoselache fossils have been found with fish preserved inside their stomachs, swallowed whole, a direct snapshot of predation frozen in stone. But Cladoselache was not alone. The Devonian seas were teeming with early shark diversity. Species varied wildly in shape and lifestyle. Some had bizarre, spiral-shaped tooth whorls. Some were flattened and likely bottom dwellers. Others were small and agile, darting through reefs of ancient sea creatures. This explosion of variety tells us something important. From the very beginning, sharks were not one thing. They were an adaptable, experimental group, constantly testing different solutions to the problem of survival. Surviving the great extinctions. What truly sets sharks apart from almost every other lineage in the history of life is their extraordinary resilience. Life on Earth has been struck by catastrophic mass extinctions multiple times. Events so severe, they wiped out the majority of species on the planet. The most famous, the one that killed the non-avian dinosaurs 66 million years ago, eliminated roughly 75% of all species. But there were others far worse. The end Permian extinction, around 252 million years ago, was the deadliest of all, sometimes called the Great Dying. It wiped out an estimated 90 to 96% of all marine species. The ocean was devastated. And yet, sharks survived. They were battered, reduced, their diversity dramatically shrunk, but they endured. They survived this extinction. They survived the end Triassic extinction. They survived the event that killed the dinosaurs. Each time, while the world collapsed around them, some sharks held on, and then, when conditions improved, they diversified once again. How did they manage this? Scientists point to several factors. Their cartilaginous skeletons are lightweight and energy efficient. Their biology allows them to go long periods without food. Many species are highly adaptable in terms of diet and habitat. And crucially, sharks reproduce slowly, but produce young that are already capable hunters from birth, not helpless larvae, but miniature predators ready to fend for themselves. The Great Diversification. After surviving each extinction, sharks repeatedly re-diversified. By the Mesozoic era, the time of the dinosaurs, sharks had evolved into many of the forms we recognize today. The ancestors of modern nurse sharks, carpet sharks, and angel sharks were swimming through Jurassic and Cretaceous seas. Some grew to enormous sizes. Cretoxyrhina mantelli, a Cretaceous shark sometimes called the Ginsu shark, could reach 6 to 7 meters in length and preyed on large marine reptiles. It was, by any measure, a dominant apex predator of its time. Then came what many consider the most impressive shark of all time, Otodus megalodon. Though it went extinct around 3.6 million years ago, Megalodon continues to capture the human imagination like few prehistoric creatures can. Estimates of its size vary, but most paleontologists place it at between 15 and 20 meters, longer than a city bus, with teeth the size of a human hand. It fed on whales. Its bite force has been estimated as one of the most powerful of any animal that ever lived. And yet, for all its dominance, it vanished. The cooling of the oceans, the shift in whale populations, and the rise of competing predators likely contributed to its demise. Even the mightiest sharks are not invincible. Modern sharks. Today, there are more than 500 recognized species of sharks, occupying virtually every marine environment on Earth. From the tiny dwarf lantern shark, which fits in the palm of a human hand and glows in the deep sea, to the whale shark, the largest fish in the ocean at up to 18 meters, the diversity of modern sharks is staggering. There are sharks in rivers, sharks in the Arctic, sharks that can walk on land for short periods, sharks that give birth to live young, and others that lay eggs in leathery cases, sharks that feed on plankton, and sharks that hunt marine mammals. Each is the product of millions of years of evolutionary refinement, a lineage stretching back to those first scale-bearing creatures of the ancient Ordovician seas. The great white shark, perhaps the most iconic of all, is a relative newcomer in evolutionary terms, appearing around 16 million years ago. Despite its fearsome reputation, the great white is a sophisticated, warm-blooded, in part animal with complex behaviors, long-range migrations, and even social hierarchies. Scientists have only begun to scratch the surface of understanding how these animals live, communicate, and think. Why sharks matter. Understanding how sharks appeared is not just a matter of scientific curiosity. Sharks are apex predators, and apex predators shape entire ecosystems. They regulate the populations of the animals below them in the food chain, which in turn affects everything down to the health of coral reefs and the carbon stored in the ocean floor. Remove sharks, and the cascading effects ripple through the entire marine environment. This is not theory. It has been observed in places where shark populations have collapsed due to overfishing. After 450 million years of survival, sharks now face one of the most serious threats in their history: human activity. Overfishing, finning, habitat destruction, and climate change are pushing dozens of shark species toward extinction. The same resilience that carried them through 5 mass extinctions cannot protect them from the speed at which human pressures are accumulating. The story of how sharks appeared is ultimately a story about time and endurance. These animals did not appear overnight. They were shaped across hundreds of millions of years by relentless natural selection, refined by extinction events that would have erased lesser lineages, and diversified again and again into an astonishing variety of forms. They are, in the truest sense of the word, survivors, living links to an ocean that existed long before the world we know. When you see a shark move through the water, that effortless, fluid glide, those ancient eyes, you are looking at the product of nearly 500 million years of evolution. You are looking at one of the oldest success stories on Earth. And in that sense, perhaps what we should feel, more than fear, is something closer to reverence.